Hello, it's Glenn, and this is your latest episode of the Beatles' lost surround sound recordings. And with much sadness, we're going to break the news as to where they come from. Now, I didn't know this, so this is not a secret that I kept from anybody. But it's unfortunately a secret that I've discovered, and it's just about as disappointing as The Wizard of Oz is the little man behind the curtain. Now, the man behind the curtain is the same one who tells Dorothy there's a twister coming, right? He's the one that he's got like a horse or something out on the plain in Oklahoma or wherever they are. No, in Kansas, of course. Okay. Well, I had been completely stumped by the 2020, 2021, 2022 discovery, that's in quotation marks, of Beatles surround sound recordings of impossible clarity and songs that were not recorded in multitracks that were laid out in multitracks. How could that possibly have happened? Well, here's the answer, and it's very disappointing, I think. What all of these latest recordings are, we're talking about the ones from Voodoo Records. I don't think there's another label that's putting them out, but the Voodoo label recordings that are, well, they sound great, 5.1, they do sound great. What they really are is just the best stereo recording they could get, which usually is going to be one of the, either a download from the Beatles website or a copy of the 2009 remastered, but not remixed, bastards, Beatles catalog. And they take the stereo version, and this is going to be shocking to you. They play it into one of 20, at least 20, different programs that have surfaced in that period, in the last 5 years, where artificial intelligence has been used to figure out how to remix music. And the artificial intelligence is so good at it that it can actually hear things in the music that we can't, or that we wouldn't normally be able to focus on. So let's say there's a cowbell way in the background, but you can just barely hear it. It can take that cowbell and puff it up and move it to the left rear of the 5.1 landscape. It can then say, okay, I'm diving back in and I'm going to find the rhythm guitar. And remember, it's got all night to use brute force, bump, 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 and it keeps trying to find, how do I isolate the sound of this rhythm guitar? And the scientist or the homeowner or whoever comes in the morning and says, no, that's not quite it, let's give it another try. But in truth, most of these programs are so good that they work in just 5 or 6 minutes. So you put in a stereo version of one that you can buy, the best stereo version you can find, because the better the sound, the better job this thing can do. And in 5 to 10 minutes, it lists and says, okay, here's your instruments. Where would you like them? And you can use another program that's free called Audacity. Load your instruments into Audacity And with Audacity that's free, you can just label, okay, this is going to be on the front left and front right, which basically puts it in the center. Or you can say, no, this comes out of the center, this comes out of the left rear, this comes out of the right rear. You can even have one, if you're stupid enough to do it, say coming out of the front left and the rear left. You never do that with sound, with surround sound. It sounds terrible. And you do that, and you have just taken a standard old CD, or let's say one of the really high quality recordings from 2009, and you've turned it into 5.1. That's all these recordings are. Do they sound good? Yeah, they do. They sound absolutely great. Are they bullshit? Yeah. You could do it now yourself. You don't need to buy these $100 CDs that people are selling, because you can do it at home on your computer for just about free. The programs that do the mixing, and the one that really people are impressed with is called AIAI.LA. And it is just stellar. I mean, it takes 10 minutes and it goes through the song and it lays out all of the instruments in the song. Not perfectly. If you listen to each instrument solo, it doesn't sound perfect. But if you lay it out in a 5.1 landscape, it sounds damn good. So that's how these people that are selling surround sound versions of Hard Day's Night and Help, and especially Rubber Soul, that's how they've done it. Does it sound good? Yeah, it does. Now, I have to say this. I've been without a stereo set for 2 months now, and it's killing me. So I have not had a chance to get into these latest volumes that have come out, like Red Rose Speedway is sitting on my desk here, and what else? The Voodoo Records version of Let It Be that has like 10 bonus cuts on it. Oh my gosh. And I was wondering, where would they get all of these surround sound recordings? They didn't. They just made them themselves. Some goofball in his garage. So that's how they made these. Now, it will be interesting to see, do these hold up? Do they disappear? Will they be the subject of a lawsuit? Because remember, it doesn't get you anywhere. We saw a real interesting case in California of a guy who claimed he was selling Beatles recordings, and he claimed that he was doing something artificially that was changing the sound that you could just not quite hear, but that his computer added something to it, and therefore it was a different song and not covered by the Beatles copyright. That went nowhere. I mean, for him, it went nowhere. He got sued, and we'll have to check and see if he went to jail. I don't think so. But that doesn't get you anywhere. So saying that, oh no, I took the Beatles recording for sure, but I ran it through this program right here, and I turned it into 5.1, that doesn't get you anywhere. You don't get any protection for that. You don't get a right to sell it. And I had some of these, and the ones that I had duplicates on, I was selling. But as soon as I realized that's where they're coming from, they're not an actual 5.1 that they made, that they got multi-tracks from. No, they're just the stereo CD that they've processed. I quit. I'm done. So, what I think really should happen is that the public should become aware of the tremendous difference between these, which again, as I'm saying, they sound pretty good. But there is a big difference between these and the load of surround sound DTS recordings that came out in between 2000 and 2010. Now, I think if you've listened to the other episodes, you'll know that I had gotten a copy of those and had not known it. In other words, somebody offered to sell me, I believe it was 12 Beatles albums in what they said was DTS. Now, I know DTS. DTS is a format, but it doesn't really tell you exactly. You need more information than that to know what you're getting. And so I bought it hoping that it would be the best-sounding Beatles I'd ever heard, and was extremely disappointed when I put it. I think I played one or two albums through my huge Magnapans, and it sounded terrible. It was missing background voices and guitars and bells and pianos. It was all horrible. So I'd forgotten about them. Just basically, hey, I got ripped off for $120 or something. Well, when COVID came, I know that's quite a lot later, and I wisely moved to a secluded, guard-gated complex. When I unloaded my computer, I noticed, as I was setting it up, that the hard drive had those old recordings were still there. I'd saved them. That was odd. Okay. Well, now, I didn't have a stereo. I had a 5.1 outfit. Surround sound outfit. What do you think of that? And you know what happened? I took the 5.1, I put the DTS recordings and put it into my 5.1 surround sound outfit, and they sounded stupendous. And so what that means is that I'd not realized that when somebody, wink, wink, sold me a DTS recording, it was 5.1, even though in 2005, there was no Beatles in 5.1. So what they were trying to tell me was, hey, these are multi-track surround sound Beatles. Now, where do they come from? And goddamn, do I wish they were in a little higher quality caliber format, because DTS, although it can sound pretty good, it is a lossy format. It is not lossless like Super Audio Compact Disc or DVD audio that really gives you everything that was on the master tape. DTS does not ever do that. So DTS, in this case, I wish it had had higher quality sound. But where did it come from? I'm convinced the only place it could have come from, especially due to the timing, I've told this story before, is that right around that time, right around 2000, the Beatles, Paul, Ringo, Olivia, and the Yoke had a meeting where they listened to Abbey Road's proposed surround sound Beatles recordings. Now, they foolishly started early in the career and played for them with the Beatles in surround. Oh, no. And Please Please Me in surround. Oh, no. And they sound terrible. They really sound terrible. What are you going to do? If you've got two channels, you can't take two channels and turn them into 5.1. Now, midway through with the Beatles, they jumped to 3 channels, and so some of the recordings there sound a little bit better, like Not a Second Time. It'd be a stellar example. And Don't Bother Me, which has 3 or 4 different channels of information. We'll get into that next week. But the Beatles listened to it. They didn't listen to all their entire catalog. They just said, I've heard enough. This stinks. And as I've written many times, that's the only time all four representatives of the Beatles agreed on anything. But they all agreed. Olivia, the Yoke, Paul, Ringo, this sounds terrible. We're not going to put this out on the public. Okay, but what they should have done, if they had brains, was they should have said, well, wait a minute. Wait till you hear what we can do with the White Album, which is 8 tracks. I mean, hey, Emerson, Lake, and Palmer's recordings are 8 tracks. So, and they sound superb on SACD and DVD audio. They've got that. They've got Let It Be, which was recorded on 8 and sounds to me like double 8s, like they had 2 8-track recorders recording it. And so they could have made astounding, and probably did, made astounding sounding surround sound Let It Be. Well, those are in the can. Those are hidden somewhere. I can't tell you where you can find them. But I think when the current fad of, oh my God, listen to this great surround sound that is made artificially with AI, artificial intelligence, when that's seen through, and it's seen to be the fraud that it really is, because it's just an upmix. Come on. It really is just an upmix. They don't call it an upmix. They call it demixing. And the blurb that really grabs your attention is they say that they can actually unswirl paint. It does a great job. It does a really good job. Now, if you listen, as I've said this once earlier, if you listen to the individual tracks, they're very unimpressive. But if you lay them out so they all play at the same time, boy, oh boy, do you get a 5.1 landscape. So if you've got that, okay, but those will fall apart. Those will fall off the radar when people realize that they really are just bogus. They're just a more intelligent version of the button on your receiver that you hit, that it says, here, hit this and I'll make it into simulated surround sound. It is just simulated surround sound. But when the public realizes that, they're going to go looking for real surround sound rubber sole, real surround sound help, real surround sound hard day's night. And those were made by Abbey Road, and they sound bitchin'. I've heard them. And those will come back, and these run-of-the-mill, fly-by-night AI versions, even though they sound good, 50% of the audience will throw them out as being frauds. 50% will say, well, I don't care if they're frauds. If they sound good, what's the difference? And that's a very legit argument. I'm not going to argue against that, but that argument will go through into the toilet for most people who will say, you know what, I would rather hear a multi-track, somebody that sat in Abbey Road and had 3 or 4 channels of recordings and turned it into the best they could surround sound. Now, here's where it gets sticky. What about Beatles for Sale? Now, if you've heard Beatles for Sale of the new Voodoo records, it is inarguably surround sound. I don't care how it was made. I don't care if it was made with voodoo. I wonder if that's the joke. It is in surround sound. The guitars are behind you, the piano's behind you, the singer's in the front, the background singers. This artificial intelligence is so sharp that it can even separate when Paul and John are singing in the same channel. It can separate the voices. Nothing can do that, at least not when I was growing up. AI can do that. So If you just care about, I want to hear some surround sound Beatles and I don't want to get into how it was made or where it was made, then go, before they disappear, grab yourself some Voodoo records. They're on eBay, all over eBay, and buy, I would say, all of them. All the ones I've heard sound spectacular, but I have not heard, I'm not willing to risk, Please Please Me, or With the Beatles. But other than those two, I've heard the other ones, and remember, Rubber Soul sounds so horrible that I've always considered it a great album that gets thrown in the trash because of a terrible mixing job by George Martin. Well, that problem is undone now. It is now mixed with voices in the center and the sitar in the back right and the guitars on the back left and a bass guitar out of the rear center between the two rear speakers. It sounds superb. So let's get into it. Let's enjoy it. Let's have some fun. Let's listen to it. And let's enjoy the Beatles music. And if you really want to enjoy real surround sound Beatles made from multi-tracks by engineers who did the best they could to take those multi-track tapes, and even though some albums were only 2 channels, there was still, when the recording session was over, they would have George, okay, George, we're going to have you do the solo now, okay, ready? We're going to start, ready? 3, 2, 1, listen to your headphones, George, you'll hear the music. All right, go. And he would record onto one recorder his guitar solo and probably try about 1,000 times to get it right, not get it right, but finally he would get it right. And then they would fly it in to the original 2-channel recording. Well, they can use that guitar solo and put it out of the right rear, and they've got the other 2 channels. So if there's one more thing, like, Ringo, we're going to have a cowbell here, and we want to add it, we're going to add a cowbell, okay? So listen to music in your headphones, Ringo. When we give you the red light, start playing cowbell. So you add the cowbell out of the left rear, and you end up with, 4 channels out of a 2-channel recording with some bonus phlegm thrown in at the end. So that's how they could get an actual 4 or 5.0 recording, or even a 5.1 recording, because the one is made all the time artificially. It's just filters that send the low notes to the subwoofer. And that's how you do it. It's great. It sounds great. And you should hope that you can find it. I do believe if you look all day and all night on the computer, all over the internet, you will find it for sale somewhere. You want to put as much information into your search engine that will help you find these recordings. So you'd want to stay away from Voodoo if you have the skills to put into your search conditions. You want to put no Voodoo. If you really know how to do search terms, which I don't, you could put in no AI mixes. But you'd want to put in Beatles. You'd want to put in DTS. And maybe even For Sale or something. I don't know about that. But you keep searching with that all day. You use your AI to do that kind of search, and you're going to find real multi-track Beatles recordings for Beatles For Sale, Help, Hard Day's Night, Rubber Soul, and believe me, they sound just wonderful. The Beatles should have stuck around at the recording, at the demonstration at Abbey Road, and said, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, throw out the first couple, but these things sound good. Yeah, let's put these on Super Audio Compact Disc. I think that'll probably happen someday, because when you hear them, you'll say, this is what we've been waiting for. And if somebody can go to the trouble of getting those tapes and saying, yeah, we're not going to put them out DTS, we're going to put them out Super Audio Compact Disc, they would sell like DTS hotcakes. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you as soon as there's any developments on the life and times of searching for the Beatles' lost surround sound recordings.